Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Organizing to Victory podcast, where we're talking garage politics. My name's Lee Perry, and today I get to interview my first congressional candidate, Eric Yonce, who's running for Congressional District 6. This district encompasses Palm Coast, Daytona, lots of the Ocala National Forest, and is just south of St. Augustine. He's running to challenge Randy Fine, one of the most bigoted and racist, outspoken individuals in Congress that Florida has ever seen. And in this race, Eric is trying to lead with love by talking about getting money out of politics and talking on every side of the aisle so that we can address affordability, the need for more infrastructure, and even conservation. Here's my conversation with Eric. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Organizing to Victory. We have a very special guest who's on the podcast today, who's actually my first congressional candidate, Eric Yonce.
Oh, I did not know that.
You're my first one.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was waiting until the redistricting fight, but, I saw you and you were like so excited. And I feel like my podcast just is like a little too baby of an audience for you, but I'm trying to build it up to get you there, but you're here. So I'm excited.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for having me. And let's get into it.
I mean, everybody loves to talk about congressional politics, I feel, because it gets all the headlines and all the spotlight, which is why I've focused more so in talking about local and the nitty gritty on the ground of how people can organize. But most of this conversation, I hope we can always recenter and try to talk about how Floridians and everyday people in your district are going to be directly impacted by what they're seeing up there at the national level. Mm-hmm. But before we dive into that, I'd love to talk to you about just like, where were you born and what was the light bulb moment that you said, I have to pay attention to politics?
Well, I was born down in Hollywood, Florida, and my parents moved shortly thereafter up to Citra, so just north of Ocala, Florida. And that's where I grew up. And my parents are still there to this day. So spent a lot of time of my life in Ocala. I went into retail shortly after I turned 18. And I spent 20 plus years in that. So I worked for Target for many years, Toys R Us, Dick's Sporting Goods. And I traveled basically around that part of Florida. So Ocala, Lakeland, Orlando, Lady Lake, Gainesville, Daytona, like just kind of bounced around, managing stores and people, and just building teams and trying to work my way through like the corporate structure of retail for many years. Started finding not vibing with it much as I got older, and I was needing something new. I like to say I was going through like a midlife crisis, turning 40.
Quarter life crisis.
Yeah, quarter life crisis. And I went for a hike. So I hiked the Appalachian Trail. It was amazing. Beautiful. I'm still processing a lot of things from that. But I knew while I was hiking that I needed to step into something else. Like I needed to change my direction of what I was doing. I wasn't fulfilling myself in retail. Even though it is very fulfilling once you start realizing your impact on things. But I needed something else. And I left retail, started kind of going back and forth into some things to try, but I needed to find a place to like set up and get back into giving to the community and being a public service. My father was a lifelong police officer, and I always admired that from him. And I was trying to find my place and what that would be for me. One, seeing the special election happen that we had last year and seeing the needle move, also seeing the type of representative that we actually voted in, I say we as a district, really concerned me and really had me kind of diving into what does this person do? What should they be doing for the district, for the community? And that they don't care about the area because they're not from there. Mm-hmm. There's no connection. And as you start looking in past races that we've had over the years, unfortunately, I went through politics kind of floating, just I was focused on my retail career, whatever I was doing. And you pay attention to the presidential election, you maybe try to look at some local things, but you're not truly engaged in it until you are. And then once you start paying attention to it, it changes you.
Were your parents active politically, or
No.
when did you have that moment of like, outside of, walking the trail, when did you have that moment of being like, I have to get politically engaged?
I would say a few years ago, it was just last year as well, I think. Everything's like...
Yeah, it's because of, honestly, social media. Every time you open your phone, it's like you're in a vortex of information.
Weird
and
construct.
So now last year feels like 10 years ago, and then 10 years ago feels like last year. So you're stuck in this vortex.
I really am. But it was the guana land swap, because we were temporarily living up in St. Augustine and very engaged in that community, and seeing what the state was potentially trying to do under the radar. Mm-hmm. And once you dove into certain things and how they were trying to sneakily do it, and the importance of that land,
right, and
what that just plot of land does for that area, and how it would protect the area if we start developing it. Massive flooding will happen around St. Augustine, even more than it already happens. And seeing the community just rise up and stand together and make signs out of restaurants and go out and protest and start contacting people, it really showed me something. I don't know. It just showed me how the power of like getting together and what community can do. That just woke me up even more. And it really forced me to start paying attention more to, all right, let me go to city council meetings. Let me go to county council meetings. Let me start seeing how this is going on, right, and seeing just the lack of care. Like, you have residents coming up to people, like protesting, like sitting in front of them, crying about a development or something that they truly care about. And you have people, representatives that are voted in by these people, just sitting there on their phone or not paying attention, or they get up and leave. And it's just completely disrespectful. And this is not what these positions were designed for. And it's sad. Mm-hmm. It's truly sad. That's really was my spark to get truly engaged. And for me, it's the best is the start of that federal level. And to, that is the number one cheerleader that we should have for our special parts of Florida, our special districts. That should be the cheerleader of that area.
Well, I hope everybody that goes on a hike comes back and says, I'm going to run for Congress, because that would be fantastic for us. And the fact that you're deeply rooted in environmentalism and in land conservation, and that's part of your story, is really important. And I think, really inspirational to me, because that's also part of my story. I think it's interconnected to everything. Like you brought up, safe streets, flooding, resiliency, community building, even from an economic standpoint, green tourism is a huge part of our economy here in the state of Florida. But the corruption is so bad that, and I don't use corruption lightly. Corruption meaning you should be, as a legislator, scared of the droves of people that come in and give public comment for hours. But to look them in the eye and still vote against their interests means you have the backing of those developers who are going to go through every obstacle to get you the funding that you need to be able to squash any opposition. Yeah. And that speaks louder than the people.
Mm-hmm. And you see it. Even though they say there's no connection, like it's plain as day. And you start seeing it coming down from the state, and that we have boards across our state that are run by developers, that are appointed by certain things. And then you look at the money that's behind certain individuals, and you're like, oh, your campaign contributions were from this developer, this insurance.
You see a lot of LLCs on a campaign contribution breakdown. That's a problem. It's
a huge problem. And it's like, who are you truly working for at that time? Like, granted, you campaign for voters, but like, that's not who you're working for at the end of the day. And I mean, we see that then translates to what the issues are on the congressional level of that's why we never get things done, is such that money that is involved, it complicates things.
So let's talk about your opponent.
Which one? No.
The primary opponent that won the special election, who seems to be unapologetically racist and open in so many ways that would be publicly shamed even just 5-10 years ago.
Yes. he's a vile human being. He is a truly
Well, tell everybody who he is.
vile human being. So Randy Fine, if you do not know. So I would say look him up.
And Randy Fine sounds like a nice name.
Sounds amazing, right?
But when I hear it, it triggers me.
It's very triggering. Like he represents chaos. He represents division. He represents like the worst that we wish didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And he brings that out in such a way that you think the president says something, he escalates it even higher to a certain level. It's truly terrifying at times because you're putting out a level of hate that can eventually maybe trigger something.
Especially when he's calling for violence openly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're in a place where, we just saw a lot of people get removed for, even just sharing some of the direct quotes from Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
And then here we have an elected official saying that he wants to see an atomic bomb go off in Gaza, right? Or it is calling for violence and saying some of the most egregious things to our Muslim population. What did he just say recently, that Muslims were worse than dogs?
Worse than dogs. Yes, I choose dogs over Muslims.
And what does that say for someone who maybe is struggling with mental health challenges and has been raised in fear of the Muslim community? It says, you have my permission to go out and enact violence.
Yeah. I mean, for many years, he has even just spewed that hate from his state position too, because he was a state rep before he was elected. And you had him on the dais, like spewing hate. And I don't understand how we got to the point where we were able to elect someone like that. Mm-hmm. And we did not care that someone was so openly racist towards groups of people that we're basically okay with that.
Yeah, and I feel like racism never went away. The civil rights movement never ended and came to a conclusion. Mm-hmm. I feel like at this point, though, the Trump effect has been a gateway drug for those who have been closeted racists and has given them full permission to come out and be as open and as vile as they want to be with very little repercussions. Yeah. We do see some, young Republican group chats that, maybe there's some backlash where they get disbanded or, they're fired from their jobs. But those cases have become more and more rare. And I think it's an entire communication strategy to normalize it on that end, but then to greatly condemn it on the other side.
We saw it in that recent chat, and not one prominent Republican official said anything about it, did not even mention it, right. And I don't even think those kids are being punished in any way. Right. It's accepted. And it's going to continue to be accepted to where we are demonizing a subsection of the population so that way people think that they're less than human. And that makes it's a brainwashing that we're seeing happen. And you see it from other countries as well. And it's right now we want to brainwash and say that all immigrants are less than whatever we think they are, less than human. So it is okay for us to treat them the way that we would treat an animal. Mm-hmm. And that's, I don't understand how the brainwashing happened. And it scares me of like, how do we unwind this? Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to take a lot of time, but it starts with, we got to stop this rhetoric that we're seeing. I mean, even just the division today or yesterday that I saw from the president of, we've bombed Iran and they are done. Now our biggest enemy is the radical left and the Democrats. Like we're just continue to put groups against each other instead of truly seeing where the problem is coming from.
And I hope that it's gone way too far. The pendulum has swung way too far, that people are starting to wake up. I think especially as from an economic standpoint, I believe that Hitler was only really successful because he came in to power while ultimately addressing people's economic needs and appointed extremely adequate professionals who are able to manipulate this system in a way that, was able to bring relief to some demographics that they were trying to win over, and they were very strategic. Trump's just an idiot. And a lot of these congressional people are just really exploiting the system because they have stocks, like congressional stocks, and they want to make money and they want to help their already rich friends get even richer. And I think at a certain point, that's such a hollow thing to continue to do, is say the immigrant is your enemy, and we're not going to really offer you a plan on how to make your life better. We're just going to show you all the ways we're going to hurt these other demographics.
Yeah.
And so if you come in with a plan, regardless of political party, I think we could have a wave of responsible Republicans that step up and say, here's my plan of how I'm going to bring relief, and actually follow through with it. But anyone could come with an actual plan and say, here's how I'm going to make sure that you have access to basic human rights.
Yes.
What are some of your plans?
Well, with that, I think all of this starts with, we have to have a real conversation and get rid of Citizens United, right? We have to change the money dynamic within our political system. We have to get the corporate piece separate from the actual decision that we need to make. And then we could have true, honest conversation about things. We also have to look at how then we pay for things properly. And that truly starts with a true tax reform. And I know all the data is out there with, we have Bernie Sanders plans, and Ro Khanna just announced one with taxing the wealthy, and we need to start looking at that, and it's funny, I met with a UAW group recently, and one of their biggest things is Social Security. And I mean, it sounds so simple. It's like, yeah, take the cap off of Social Security. I mean, it's at what, like 165,000 or whatever it is, that's what it's capped at. There's no other tax paid after that for Social Security. What do congressmen make? Mm-hmm. Like $160,000. So it's funny to me that there's that dynamic of, well, we don't want to take money away from us, but that's the way we make something solvent. We have to, yes, pay more in taxes, but it's not the middle class that's going to pay more in taxes. But yet any tax reform gets put towards temporary relief towards the middle class. So they think well, okay, we're receiving something great, and huge, massive, permanent relief towards a corporate structure and for the wealthy that still puts the middle class behind and still makes them feel constrained. And we have to switch that tax dynamic of what that is. And then we could start really funding some of this stuff, or really looking at how does healthcare get involved with this. That's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be something we could change overnight to say, all right, we're going to go to a single payer system completely across the board. But we need to start having those conversations, and we need to start figuring out a plan so that way people aren't choosing whether they have healthcare or just go with whatever they have bothering them. I don't have healthcare right now. Mm-hmm. So for me to go see a doctor, I'm calling multiple places, trying to find pricing, trying to see if they would even accept me, and what does that look like. And that's a tough thing when I have something wrong. It's not that easy. But we've put people in this dynamic where they're having to now not go with healthcare coverage because they can't afford it. That goes beyond what's going on in our economy right now with prices going up too. You add that to it as well. How are people even living?
It's so interesting to me because I was 10 years old when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
But I remember the long public addresses of having to see Bush go above and beyond to explain why we had to go there, and weapons of mass destruction and all the imagery and all of these things that really fear-mongered people at the beginning into accepting and making it palatable for us to, spend the resources that we needed to spend to go into Afghanistan and Iraq. And I mean, of course, we know now what we know now, but there was a very drawn out focus on trying to convince the public. Whereas now I'm seeing Trump get a multi-billion-dollar ballroom alongside of a complete remakeover of all these buildings and all of this gold leaf and statues put in the White House and put out, all across the country, these big monuments for him. At the same time, I'm seeing people just waking up to their phones, seeing that we're bombing another country without having the adequate time and the adequate spokespeople to really explain why it had to be right now. And I think Trump is, frankly, a genius to have this approach of attack at everything all at once to make people so cripplingly overwhelmed by the information that they're receiving that we can't quite organize or form collective opinions on certain things because everything's on fire.
Everything is.
And so it causes us to not be able to have a really good, deep conversation on one thing because everyone has to make a statement about everything, right? And so if we're talking to voters about healthcare, how could it be that not even 2 months ago, we were battling the Affordable Care Act subsidies and trying to hold the line against these premium spikes that we knew were coming in January. And now we're already the Pentagon's asking for $200 billion to go into more weaponry to bomb Iran. And the country hasn't even been given a real reason as to why we're over there. It's like, I am stunned by what I'm seeing. And I'm curious how you are able to connect the dots for people and if it actually is resonating in the same district that voted to elect Randy Fine.
I get a good cross-section of Republicans, Democrats that I'm able to talk to. Yesterday, I spoke to a gentleman that Republican wanted to talk to me for probably like 5 minutes. We had a good conversation. The way people are seeing the war, for somehow they have already accepted that it is something that we need to do, but yet they have no evidence from it. It's just, actually, I take that back. The evidence came from their one news source that they're watching. Right. And that, when we say we haven't been given the evidence, we're not watching that news source. We're not, I don't know if I could say it, but.
Sure.
Yeah, we're not watching.
Then sue me, I don't have any money.
We're not watching Fox News, right? So if you're watching that, you're being propagandized on a regular basis that Iran is the problem. Immigrants are the problem. Like, they're blasting the issues towards the people watching that nonstop. And that is, the president didn't need to make his case. They made it for him. So now he can just run with it. Right. And it's a true brainwashing. Now, they've already accepted the fact that prices are going to rise, and they're okay with that right now. So trying to argue to say, hey, we got to rub your nose in this a little bit, like that's not working yet. Right. Unfortunately, like there has to be more pain that they're having to feel. And that's the scary part. It's like, how far does this need to go to where you wake up and say, we have a problem? Do we need more soldiers dying? Do we need more of our allies and being isolated? And we're almost okay with that too. Or at least when I speak to people that are coming from the other side, it's like, no, we need to do what the president's doing.
It doesn't make any sense. It's almost the exact same argument with COVID. Every economic argument to them fell on Biden, but they forget that the misinformation at the beginning of COVID allowed the pandemic to get out of control, and we could have saved, from an economic standpoint, so many more lives and so much more money had we had a real pandemic plan and they didn't completely dissolve the department that Obama had put into place. And so a lot of the economic hardships that fell on the next administration were started with Trump. And they almost lose sight of that connectivity because they're just fed this propaganda on it being Biden. But one blip of something like $4 gas under a Biden administration would have been insanity. Now it's like, yeah, but we needed to do that. They were gonna bomb California, and it's like, no, we have no evidence of that. And there's even people in his own administration stepping down and saying, from counterintelligence, saying like, this is not the threat that they're making it out to seem like it is.
Well, you even had Iran themselves say that they were not seeking a nuclear weapon, that they would restructure any nuclear deal, and that they would lessen, or how do they word it? But basically what they had enriched, like, here, like, inspect it, like, help us. You could take some of it or whatever. Like, they were willing to negotiate, and they were coming to the table with those things. And that's when they were attacked. Like, it saddens me that that's what our country is standing for, and being now this bully within the world. And it scares me how this is going to change the actual dynamics of everything around the world, because we are completely shifting that. And unfortunately, it's under the guise of a man that just wants to prop up his ego to end his life. He wants a statue. He has his art that he's putting up. Like, he's making this grandeur that his whole life has been, and this is like the final piece to it.
Well, it's also, and just to tie it back to your district, it's also who he's allowing to come into his orbit and whisper in his ear. And it's not even like the entire like petrochemical industry. It's just a few voices that are saying, hey, I could get rich if you do this, this, or that, and we can completely take over these resources. And it's not just even with oil. It's, he's doing that to Greenland. He's doing that to Lebanon. He's doing that to areas that have extremely limited resources in their mining industry. And he's just listening to those corporations that want to get as rich as possible, that are close to his orbit, and allowing all of these affairs to kind of direct him in order to help their gains. And then how that affects us at home is, how much pain are people going to feel before they wake up and realize, oh, the cost of groceries has skyrocketed twice as fast as it did under Biden.
Yeah.
Gas twice as fast as it did under Biden. It almost feels like he has to push us into a depression. The only benefit that I think is happening in this moment is that he's doing everything so fast and so recklessly that I pray that people will feel the pain in his administration and not have it fall into the hands of the next person who takes power.
I hope so.
So it all falls, everything that he's built in his brand and in the folks that he has basically appointed into office, and they're doing like a mafia boss kind of kiss the ring or else we're going to primary you situation, which causes more of his followers to run for office than the other good Republicans that care about unions, that care about the environment. Those Republicans are being primaried.
They're being pushed out.
And so there's no space for their voices. No. And so the Republicans are left to just having MAGA as their party. And not every Republican feels like MAGA represents them.
No. I mean, we're seeing that shift and that dynamic within the MAGA party for sure. Now, how much can our district withstand until they collapse? I don't know. I mean, the average salary take home is like $68,000 for a family. Like, how can a family, so assume 4, maybe 3 people living under a house, how are you affording to live under $68,000?
How are they? Skipping insulin?
Skipping either healthcare now, if they even had healthcare or ACA coverage, debt. Like, the amount of, when you really dive into it, there's been and this is something I spoke to the other day, And I saw it when I was leaving retail. It's these private credit companies that don't report to the actual credit agencies like a Klarna and Afterpay, things like that. Like you can use Afterpay to order your DoorDash. That's scary. That's scary that we're financing fast food.
This is literally what happened during the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm. What the scary thing is like this stuff's going on and it's not necessarily reported at all. So there's this other debt that I don't think a lot of people realize is necessarily out there that's also crippling people, that Afterpay comes out of their paycheck. So it may be $20, $30 at a time that's coming out, but that's still then impacting nonstop. I don't know how much people can take.
Right.
We have to get control of this economy to the fact of put guidelines on some of these things that are preying on individuals that are just trying to get by. And yes, you're making it easy for them to, the word I hear all the time is purchasing power now, instead of actually like money that you have, but you have purchasing power. So you are given this illusion that you have a lot of access to money. And that's not a great place to be in as an economy. The other piece is jobs being lost. And you have AI taking over. And we're seeing that we had some factories close within the district that pushed jobs elsewhere, not to AI, but actually to tariffs when they first unleashed. And whenever you start seeing hundreds of jobs, like factory jobs being lost within a district that is rural, and these people now are having they lose their job or they're being forced to drive an hour and a half to go to work at the other plant.
Right. I mean, artificial intelligence, I feel, is a race to close a lot of the employment gaps because capitalism's like a hungry monster you have to feed all the time. But this has been going on when globalization became so mainstream and jobs were being offset overseas in order to, cut costs and cut some of the environmental regulations. But I feel like right now what's going on is Trump is just throwing more and more like oil on the fire and just making these companies have to make harder and harder decisions to shift, while his other friends in the artificial intelligence world are saying, how can we quickly innovate to replace?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be past the point where these larger companies can't pay a living wage enough that's competitive enough.
No.
Which is so crazy to me, because when does capitalism start to circle back and hurt itself, right? Like, then we're getting rid of all of the immigrant labor.
Yeah. But isn't that the...
So what? We're all going to work 5 jobs in order to survive, but then the jobs all do not pay a living wage or give adequate health care. So they're just going to burn through us in our capacity until we're all burnt out and dead. And then they can replace us with robots. Like, what's the plan here?
I don't know. I don't know where this goes, but it's the truth. Like we're being systematically replaced, but then there's not funding allotted to say, all right, if we're going to take your jobs, like here's actually some income to help supplement this right here. Because it's not like housing's getting any cheaper. A home right now averages around $300,000 for somebody. Mm-hmm. That's around a $2,000 payment a month, give or take.
Right.
Like, if you're going back to, retail jobs are even being taken away by AI. This is not a good cycle that we're in to where, okay, if we all become laborers of some sort, that's almost what it seems like the goal is. Or is it to be in, the data centers and having employees in data centers? That's what we heard with, we're going to bring factory back and we're going to bring everything away from being in China or wherever overseas and we're going to make it here. I haven't seen that happen. And the factories we're building, like, it's not like there's a lot of workers that are going to be there. Maybe building it is. But what happens when that gets done?
So what I always wonder, like, what are the policies to actually address this? Because the lobby for artificial intelligence is extremely powerful right now. and has infiltrated both parties.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume regulations look like, you have to justify mass layoffs in order to keep your operational licenses.
Right.
You can't operate in the United States and report record profits while you're having mass layoffs.
No.
Like things like that to me. But then you get into the rhetoric of, well, that's governmental overreach.
There's got to be a balance where we reach now where the government's going to have to overreach. Like, let's be real. Like, if you're going to give all powers to corporations and say the government can have no control over something, the corporation's just going to want to make as much money as possible. They don't care about you. Like, that's government's supposed to be there to care about you. So there has to be some type of overreach and control. And the fact that we do not, we speak at one end of our mouth at something and then the other end of another. So we want states to control rights of certain things. But when it comes to AI regulation, no, like states cannot put laws and anything into place to control it. Because we're going to make this blanket thing from the federal government that basically gives them open,
right.
And I think there needs to be some safeguards. You even think about unions and the fact of now unions are up against fighting against AI to protect workers. You think of like docking jobs and ports and things like that. A lot of that is driven by now robots instead of workers, or that was one of the strikes last year or 2 years ago with it. We have to start putting protections in place to say, yes, if you're going to do mass layoffs, and I agree with you, like we need reasoning, or, is there this balance that says you need to have this amount of your workforce? Like you have to figure it out.
You have to give a year of severance.
Something.
If you're going to relocate your plant, something to ensure that these corporations have to think twice before completely shifting their model. Right. It's happening too quickly and too many people are getting left behind.
Yeah.
And then I think from our end, from the Democratic side, when we do try to slow some of the bleeding, it's slow or it's not felt as quickly as what people need to feel. Mm-hmm. Like the child tax credits that were implemented under Joe Biden almost completely relinquished the country of child poverty. Yeah. But yet it was felt in a way economically, it didn't shift neighborhoods the way universal child care would have.
Right.
Universal child care, you would have felt that immediately. People being able to have that cost burden off of their monthly bill.
Huge.
With the Inflation Reduction Act, we didn't get monies into communities fast enough. No. Great projects, great jobs, incredible clean energy, local energy, American made. And yet we couldn't turnkey those grants quickly enough to get solar implemented in indigenous communities or to, create, where those mines were being closed to get those jobs and that job training in those small mining towns turnkey.
Right.
And so we lost a lot of people and a lot of that money wasn't spent as fast as it needed to be. Billions of dollars were still implemented, but nowhere near as fast as and of course, Biden wasn't the best messenger at that point in his life. We could have had an incredible messenger going out and showcasing all of the ways that the money was spent. Yeah. But I say this because Trump, when I say that he's a genius in this, I don't think he's actually intelligent. I think that it's a genius plan to force feed people with a fire hose information and then be able to look productive.
Yes.
Because bureaucracy is very slow. And I think in this term, he's cared much less about optics and much more about results. Mm-hmm. Even if they're illegal, even if they're unconstitutional, even if people are waking up barely able to breathe because they're seeing like some of the most egregious, inhumane things on their phones that they're seeing every single day. It's all part of the strategy. And then people like in your district, for example, are left just trying to put the puzzle pieces together, feeling like their situation is individual from everyone else's. Like we all have to carry the burden of are losing our jobs or not being able to afford our property insurance on our own backs.
Right.
When it's collectively happening, like I think Bernie always says 60% of people are paycheck to paycheck in this country.
Yes.
So, I mean, when you're going door to door, I would like to believe that your messages are resonating with almost every person you talk to, regardless of political affiliation.
They pretty much are. I mean, people, the number one thing I get is, once we get beyond party, because that's the first question. It's like, what party are you? I'm like, okay, why does that matter to you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's talk. And we get beyond that, hey, there's this party divide that we have. And just to the fact of like, we're all in this together, and that we're almost, it's us against this structure that's put in place. And once we start talking about, whether it is taxes or what's happened to your health care, or how do you feel about what's going on with Iran? And it's not necessarily accusing anybody of thinking differently, or it's not necessarily attacking them for thinking differently. It's just allowing kind of a thought to come out and have them explain why they feel a certain way, or what is going on, or how they think about it. It lowers the guard, and it allows for more conversation to be had, and it allows for people to see that we do have some deep problems going on. Trump was genius with how he's pushing this through. And yes, it is if you see right now, like I said earlier, like he's already claiming that we're done with Iran. No, we're not. Like you just ruined a country.
A fifth of our global oil supply comes from Iran.
Yes. Like we're going to be dealing with this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no strategic plan that we see. It's like we've gone from threatening Greenland, attacking Venezuela, now overthrowing or trying to like be in Iran, all in the course of a month. And it's like, yeah, we're doing a great job. All right, we're done here. It's like, no. But like people are like, oh, this is good. Let's move on to the next thing. He's doing great. Like we're just flying through this. And it's like, no. Our immigration problem was solved. We fixed everything. What did you do? You just caused more chaos.
Yeah.
But it's like this instant, and he understands this world that we live in that is very short-sighted on our phone of it's instant gratification, and that's what people want to see. We've gotten past of like this long-term outlook, and it's we need a quick win to make ourselves feel good, because that's the 20 seconds that we're scrolling on our phone real quick. And then I'm good with my day. We're done.
Well, I think Democrats are going to have a hard time keeping up nationally, because as you can see, in one of the most terrifying times where authoritarianism is on the incline, I really think we're already there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Democrats still at such a low approval rating. That has to be a huge sign that our Democratic leadership, as it's always been, hasn't been keeping up with keeping the attention span of the public in a favorable way.
I feel like the problem that we're running into is we've gotten so far into trying to raise money as a party. Like the party gets about money, and you lose track of actually talking to people. Mm-hmm. And we lose track of the narrative of what that needs to be. If you're constantly trying to fundraise and constantly trying to ask people for money at the same time saying, we understand your pain at the gas pump. Like that's a weird dynamic to go through. And I see it in a lot of these races that are going on. It's who's fundraising the most, not who's connecting with the community the most.
Right.
It's who is bringing in the most money. And that's who the party is like propping up. And you lose track of what the community is asking you to do. Mm-hmm. And that is where the disenfranchisement of like the Democrat Party is coming. Like that's where the divide is. And, you have someone like a Trump figure come in, and like that's how he came rose into power. Like he spoke against whatever establishment, even though now he's one of the worst people within the establishment because he's taken advantage of everything that Democrats and Republicans have been doing for years and no one's called out. And he's like, fine, I'm just going to do it and like 10 times more. And you're not going to say a word to me because you're all doing it as well.
Right.
And we've lost connection.
Like the embargo in Cuba.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we couldn't have shed some light and humanity on Cuba when we had power politically. We've all, Democrats and Republicans have exploited that situation just like Trump, but 10 times more now.
Correct.
And frankly, there's a lot of Democrats that are for the war in Iran, who also have like Islamophobic views themselves. And so, you know, our party is shifting very fast, but this is why I love being specifically a progressive, because progress means change, and progressives are supposed to be the change,
Correct.
The face of that change. But something I love that I've learned on this podcast is that a lot of people who identify as progressives actually don't get offended by that term, but the way they look at it is what we're fighting for is the basic agenda of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
You want to call us radical.
You're not.
We want health care. We want bridges.
We just want the function. Like, we want the basic of like necessity in life to be there for people. Like, it's not hard. It's not crazy.
And I think where we get caught up in being told that we're radical is because we just don't want the corporations to have a louder voice.
Yep. 100%.
Because capitalism is inevitably going to be, what next can we do to make a profit? And there has to be a limit to that.
There has to be. I mean, you think, like, how hard is it to say, okay, as a corporation, whatever it may be, I'm going to say retail because that was where my life was for years. You're raking in millions of dollars of profit every year as a corporation. You're telling me that you can only afford to pay your team members a 10 to 25 cent raise every year?
Oh my God.
But yet you can fund and sponsor your NASCAR race. You can go do this. You can have this elaborate meeting that costs
retreat.
Yeah, it's like millions of dollars probably, but you can't afford to pay your employees more. And yet labor is the number one thing you're going to cut from the stores, but then demand so much more. And there needs to be some point. And, you know, and that's where then as a progressive, you get labeled socialism or communism or whatever like negative connotation they want to think of this, when you're just saying, look, as a corporate entity, pay an actual true living wage.
Right.
And if you think that's $15 an hour, you're sadly mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's barely, you probably even need to go to 25 now to make somebody feel comfortable in living. And that may not even be enough. And they could afford it. But yet they treat their employees as a type of labor and try to dangle a carrot to say, all right, we could get to this type of base salary, but you need to push this more. You need to do this more. And it just makes a toxic environment. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where that cycle comes back around to where corporations start understanding what their employees mean. And if we don't have employees and labor there that are paid effectively and taken care of, and you're going to replace everything with AI, society will collapse. And we're not far from that. So we have to start having some safeguards from the corporate interests of like, you're going to have to like come to bat for this.
Right.
If there's no other way.
Well, I think the way we start is getting people from the community and from the worker side, not the executive side, to run for politics. Yeah. Because right now, I think the Democratic Party especially, definitely the Republican Party, and this is why I think it's very unfortunate that we have this duopoly that distracts us from getting to the core. But someone like you who came from a worker standpoint, you weren't high on the totem pole, you were in the managerial space, but like you probably knew your community. You see people every day. You interface with people who are literally the voters that you represent in your district. Democrats and Republicans go for like the executives that have networks of friends that can cut them a check like immediately. And they're not looking for like the small town coach or teacher. You know what I mean? They're trying to get a quick turnover of someone who can just maybe speak articulately enough to evoke the policies, not really given structure on what policies they should champion. Because if they did, every Dem would be progressive. Every Dem would talk about healthcare. Every Dem would talk. They're not given that agenda. They're told, raise the money. And so they start at the executive level. And if you've ever met someone who's like, you know, at that executive level, they don't know what the day-to-day looks like for those everyday workers. And so now look at that in a broader level. If we're going after a full party full of executives, how do they know what the day-to-day of their voters looks like?
No clue. I mean, what's funny is that, as you say that, I got told in this race 2 things that make a great candidate: a resume and fundraising. And the resume that they want is just that, some glossy thing that has no connection to the everyday person. But also the other piece of it, as they're trying to communicate, they're trying to then put this message of, I am this everyday person, that I've connected with you in this level and this level, but they can't speak to it. They can't speak to what it truly feels like to live this life. They're trying to relate to it as best they can, but there is a true disconnect. And I don't understand how we can go on as a party with, if that's like how we're going to like continue to like put representatives in place. It's tough because you have great people that are trying to do just this, that have lived these lives within the communities they're trying to serve. And it gets very disheartening when you have then party officials come up to you and say, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
You need to drop out of this, or you need to move on to this race, or maybe you should learn and go run for this position instead of the position you're running for.
Right.
And instead of actually showing, hey, we could help you in this, or like,
here's a toolkit that everyone gets access to equally.
Here's a toolkit that's not made by kids, that's like some weird like workbook that they're having you do. Like, here's actual good feedback, or you know, we see you're struggling with this. I know this person will help you sit down with and like help you understand policy when it comes to foreign affairs or whatever it may be. But that's not the case. It's, I got you this. You can't tell me this. You don't know what you're talking about, and this isn't for you.
Well, you can see that on the Republican side too. And this is why I hope when you're talking to folks at the door, they feel this, because even the good Republicans that are getting into office and they have a project, maybe they want to get funding for their coral reef rehabilitation or something. They go up to the state level in Tallahassee and they kind of sell out on a lot of the other things that maybe they don't really align with, because they just want to get that appropriations bill to be able to have that win in their community that they know the people on the ground really care about. DeSantis will turn around and say, if you don't champion every single one of my pieces of legislation, I will completely veto all of your appropriations bills. And so you have to be in line or else you get punished. And that's something that like Democrats have not perfected. And frankly, I don't think that's not real democracy. But I think that's another real issue is there are everyday people like you on the Republican side that have a dream of helping their community, but they get bullied.
Yes. I mean, we're seeing it this year around the state right now with Republicans. I mean, there's a Republican in our race as well that's grassroots, that's been working at this for years of trying to run for this office. And it's sad that they are pushed aside if they don't want to go with whatever that mainstream narrative is. That's sad for each side of politics. And that is the one argument that I have that's a lot of people have. It's like, okay, you say all this stuff now, but once you get into office, you're going to be forced to walk the party line. I'm like, I would like to think that I have more backbone than that, and that I wouldn't, but you see everybody doing it almost. Like, you see a lot of people that fall for, say, I just got to get this one project in, but they fall. But funny thing is, like, you think about within our district, we have someone like a Randy Fine representing us that goes to everything, or wants to double down on everything that is crazy that Donald Trump says. But he hasn't even brought back anything that's of, hey, I fought for this, or I'm like, my rhetoric that I'm doing is paying off for our district with this project or this funding.
Right. He has no wins.
No.
He also got caught voting multiple times.
Yes.
And that video went viral. The same person that believes that, Trump won in 2020 is with fraudulent votes for Biden.
I mean, that just shows like what he truly thinks of the process, of legislating. No, you're just sitting there at the State House plugging in everyone's votes for them. Like,
that's so crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that he was barely held accountable for it.
That's a crazy thing to do. But I want to know, what are your top 3 or so issues that you think when you're talking to people at the doors that they care the most about? Yeah.
The biggest thing I necessarily care about and want to bring back is infrastructure funding. Like I just said, we haven't had it in our district for a very long time. Part of Florida has been used as a stepping stone for many years to advance some type of political gain, but unfortunately hasn't worked towards the advantage of the district. You put that on top of the massive development that we're seeing. And I mean, we have areas like Palm Coast, St. Johns County, that's hotbeds for development. That's the number one areas. And there's no coordination with infrastructure. And you have a lot of infrastructure projects going on right now that are asking for federal support. And these are water systems, like neighborhood flooding. These are things that require federal support, and they're being pushed back. And that is my number one concern. It's like, if we want to talk about a state of eliminating property taxes, how do you expect a municipality to continue to even just fund basic services, much less address a water crisis that they're having?
Do you think people in your district understand that property tax fight?
No.
You think that they are excited to get maybe $6,000 back into their pocket?
I think a lot of people are just confused by it. And I tell them, I would love not to pay property tax. That would be amazing. But let's be honest, how do we then fund the things that we need for our communities? How do we fund our police? We've talked about defunding the police years ago, and now
that's literally
talking about defunding the police.
That's a smart way to spin it.
Yes.
I like that.
So it's how are you going to do these things? How are you going to have fire and EMS services? Go privatize, which I've heard rumors about too, which that's scary in itself. So it's there's that grand thing of, yes, I would love not to pay property taxes. And of course, you want to have tax. We have to understand, taxes are going to be with us. It's just can taxes be spent effectively and efficiently? That's what we should be looking at. But the argument of needing property tax to where else are we going to get that funding from? It's going to come from somewhere, and we're going to pay for it from somewhere. So I'm hoping more and more people are starting to realize what that is. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, one of the number one things that stands out to me on your website is about slowing down some of this excessive development.
Yes.
It's funny because as an environmentalist, so many legislators try to pin us as environmentalists against the housing crisis, people who are demanding more housing. But those arguments are not opposites. You can have zoning laws that could really help incentivize growth in the right areas. And in Florida, we have so many case studies and economic studies that prove that smart growth is actually better for the economy and that sprawl is more expensive. But it's, again, just like with Trump listening to a small group of corporations, not every developer is the same. The developers that have been doing this since before I was born, the handful of the ones that are doing those mega developments are also the ones sending, 120 lobbyists up to Tallahassee to deregulate their industry so they can build in flood-prone areas without being held accountable to the public, and actively removing local control. At the federal level, even something that I know Trump is prioritizing right now is repealing things like the Endangered Species Act so that we can't say, hey, approving all these developments in the Indian River Lagoon, for example, is part of why our endangered species are dying and having mass deaths, like the manatees. And so at the federal level and the state level here in Florida, it feels like there's a race against the clock when it comes to climate change and sea level rise, where these developers just want to make as quick of a profit as they possibly
knock it
can.
out.
Get all these people who are migrating from Miami, the homes that they're going to move into when sea level rise is beyond control, make them $600,000 starting. But then they'll be in flood-prone areas with no infrastructure money.
And they have no clue that they're there.
Right.
Or in fire-prone areas too, because our district basically is around the Ocala National Forest. So a lot of these now sprawling developments are pushing up against old forest land, and old timberland. So timber's been a part of that district for a very long time. But now that old timberland is being sold off at huge plots to developers. And, I've had a lot of pushback on that. It's like, I'm not against, I've been here my entire life. We're going to have development. It's just like you said, like we have to prioritize smart development. I remember being a child driving through South Florida, and I saw there first of just bulldozing over marshlands, filling it in, and building malls, building apartments. And now, like, that's what you see up this way of just complete clear cutting. And there's no regard to the natural flow of things. And we all understand how Florida works. Like, you need natural areas for the water to absorb down. You need those springs to get recharged from our rainwater. You continue to pave over everything and bulldoze and take those areas away. That's going to then cripple our aquifer. And we're going to then be in a real world of hurt when we run out of water. And I have heard some counties start talking about, we need to limit development to what our actual aquifer can withstand, which is great if we're actually starting to have this conversation. I just hope it's not too late. But it's very concerning. And we have to start promoting smart growth and what that should look like. And there's been a couple programs that are around the area. Like there's one called Walkable Volusia that prioritizes like having development within existing cities and going taller per se, or things in a walkable area that you can function, not have to drive and put a bunch of parking lots everywhere or whatever it may be. That's the type of stuff we have to start looking at rather than sprawling into our forests or into our farmlands. And you create this like disconnected community. I saw one the other day, I forget the name of it. It's like Wind Hollow or something, like just a generic name. And you're like, this was a beautiful plot of land at one time. And now it's just blank, boring housing and apartments and
the cheapest they can get it on their
cheapest
end.
They can get it
With the highest return.
No character at all. But that's how now we're representing Florida. And yet the small town that it's connected to, the community center of the town itself is stripped. There's no investment there anymore. So now that downtown core completely just falls apart to go to the sprawl that's out and about. And that's sad.
How would we address that from a congressional level?
It's tough because a lot of that stuff is localized. When it comes to land use, zoning, things like that, that's all brought forth at our state and local levels. For me as a representative, I see it in a couple of ways. One, with prioritizing infrastructure spending, or at least hey, we'll approve this grant, but this is a type of infrastructure project that needs to go towards, and really advocating for that smart growth. We should have, if developments want to take and develop 1,000 acres, they also need to be required to have infrastructure development into the existing city center or whatever it may be. We have to start advocating for that as representatives. Now, can we put those laws into place? Not necessarily, because they're federal and we don't have control over that. But, I think there's a lot of power with a congressman coming in, and if there's a massive development showing up and sitting in front of the city council and be like, no, we need to start doing this differently, and I can see through it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people understand whenever I say that to them, that's not the job of a congressman. I'm like, how is it not? How is it not the job to actually represent the care or what the citizens need or are desiring, and to stand with them in front of their city or county council?
I can't even count on both hands how many times I've seen Congressman Frost, because we're in Congressional District 10, show up to a Board of County Commission meeting to speak or send his aides to speak. This is something that I wish people understood, is that just because you're in Congress doesn't mean I shouldn't see you everywhere.
Correct.
It's so crazy too, because I'll see him go viral on Instagram on something, and then he'll be at a coffee shop. And I'm like, wait, you're my congressman, or just showing up to, parades or what. He's everywhere. Mm-hmm. But it's not because he's some, God that is, not attainable or accessible. I don't know why so many legislators disappear fully.
Because they don't want to be held accountable.
Right.
They can't sit there and sit at a coffee shop in their community and just be one with the community. And you may have somebody that's mad at you that wants to talk, and be okay to talk with them, because you got to own whatever decision you made.
Right.
We haven't had a town hall or any type of communication with Randy Fine. There's none of that.
I would love to go to one, though.
Gosh. They are privately fundraised town halls that he puts on, but you have to
pay to play.
Exactly. But there's not that connection. And there's a complete, and that's, when you see real representation, there's a true connection between the representative and the community. And there's a pride there. I've seen it while I was hiking, or I spent a small little time in Nebraska, right? And there's a true pride in their connection with their representative. They know where their office is. My father-in-law can text his congressman and get a response back.
Right.
That, you don't have that here.
Right.
Or at least in District 6. You don't have that connection, and they've never had it. It's always been someone that's completely above them. No, I can't talk. I'll do my photo op with you and whatever we do. But I don't care what you think or say or what your feedback is, because I'm not going to listen to it.
And the problem is that things are getting so dire that, like you said, people are going to feel a lot of pain really quickly, and they are going to be calling and wanting someone to speak to as things get crushing. And they're not going to have anybody answer the phone if they don't elect someone better. So we have infrastructure, healthcare, and ensuring that we're slowing the growth and bringing resources in to keep up with some of the bad growth decisions. What are some other things that are priority for you?
Like I said, we have to get the money out of politics, and Citizens United, the ability for representatives to be able to invest and the stock options that they are getting into, and you should not be elected and then become a millionaire.
You would ban
I
stock
would.
trading?
Yes. Like that should not be.
Hey, how are you going to get rich though?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I love the fact of like now coming from this small business. After the whole retail aspect, we started a small business of renovating vintage Airstream trailers. So like that has like really, really grounded me in this piece of I don't need a lot to survive on. I have what I have and I'm okay with that. I mean, also hiking and spending 4 months out in the woods will do that to you as well. It changes how you look at things and what you need and what you don't need. And the only way to have a representative or somebody to start making change is they can't be funded in any way by anything special. You know, you can't be jaded of making whatever decision is right for the people that you are chosen to represent. And unfortunately, money does that to everybody. And we shouldn't be getting rich. Like, yeah, would I love to have millions of dollars? Sure. But more money, more problems. So like, I'm not going to go there right now. Like we have to start fixing the true problems that are within our government. And it starts with like fixing the money that's behind it. And that's these political races as well. There should be no reason why it's millions of dollars pumped into political campaigns and you lose so much track of actually connecting with voters because you're trying to raise so much money because you're like, that's what you have to do. It loses the true meaning of what you should be doing in this. So yes, like we have to fix the whole money piece within our political spectrum. And that's the corporate interests, that's stock banning, that is our campaign finance. Like we have to fix that stuff.
And the thing that frustrates me is the money that we're putting into communicating to voters could have a direct impact on their lives. I just watched an interview with Graham Plattner and how the amount of money that was spent in his race could literally have given everyone universal childcare and access to healthcare in Maine, and how that really doesn't sit well with him, that he's having to ask for money in a time when people can't really make it. And that's how much money is going into the race. I mean, Kamala Harris had $1 billion. And I think there's just going to be a shift where, you know, people are going to want to see more accessibility and more of a mutual aid, you know, excellent constituent services, more town halls, just another generation of accountability for legislators, especially at the federal level. Do you have any ideas in terms of like how you could be more accessible to the public?
I mean, as far as what I'm doing now, I'm trying to be as accessible as possible. You know, I'm every day trying to show up at least one place within the district, right? And be out there, whether it's at a coffee shop, brewery, whatever, or in a park or helping, whatever it may be. I think I look at someone like Congressman Frost and the things he does, like what did I see with the passport class that he was having? I don't know if that was coming up or it's past, but that's the type of, we should have those programs coming in place, and we should have, whether it's classes or, you know, we have Putnam County where Palatka is. It's kind of in the north center part of the district. They don't have government services there. So why could we not like have some type of rotating mobile government service that comes in and helps? Hey, we're going to have somebody help you with Social Security or your Medicaid questions here on site X amount of time. They don't have that. But like, that's the type of creativity I think we need, rather than saying, hey, you need to travel to Alachua County, St. Johns County, Flagler County for whatever service you need. You know, the more we can get active in communities that show that we're there and that we care and that there is someone that you may think differently of. We may have, you know, and this is one thing I tell people. It's like, at the end of the day, we agree on most things. We may not agree on how we're going to get there, but you can't tell me you don't want healthcare access for people. You can't tell me you don't want people to have not have to choose between rent and food, like that people shouldn't have equal rights. Like, you can't tell me you don't want those things. They're basic. And we get so divided and so misguided on that to where I think once we change that conversation and start just showing people that we're present and that we're listening and that we're all trying to fight for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, if we disagree on something, that's fine, but we're not going to disagree on how people should be treated.
Right.
That is going to start showing that there's a change in representation. That's at least how representation should be.
Well, I know you brought up congressional power to take it out of the hands of the authoritarian regime that we have currently. I'm curious, right now, even if Democrats were to toe the line and actually win either the House or the Senate,
mm-hmm.
we have Democrats defecting on basic policies like voting in the DHS, appointee, or, the ACA subsidies. Do you think you would break from party when it came down to extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies, because that's coming back, for example?
Yeah. I would break from party if it meant that I'm taking care of what my district and what the community wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I feel is happening right now is you have people breaking away from things for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And the wrong direction of where they want to go. And we need to start doing things what's right for the people that are there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to continue DHS funding until we have an agency that actually abides by rules, right? That's not a crazy idea. I don't know why we're making it that way. Now I'm scared that we're putting ICE in airports. So we have to assert our power back as a Congress, as an institution. We have leaders that are too worried. I mean, it goes back to funding. It really does. It goes back to what money is behind them, whether it's a foreign lobby
mm-hmm.
or corporate interest. That's why we have people within our own party saying that we need it, like this war is okay. Or they may say the war is, I don't agree with it, but I'm going to continue the funding for it.
Right.
Like that's a fine line they're walking to try to navigate and thread some needle. In reality, it's like, if you don't agree with the war, then we shouldn't be funding it any further as well.
Right.
Like if you don't agree with how our immigration system is working, then don't fund it. Like that's our biggest power in Congress is how funding works. And we should be asserting that power back.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the Israel lobby and I think of the money that could probably be influencing their politics. And people take it so personally. Like as soon as you start to navigate those conversations, it's you're Islamophobic or you're anti-Semitic or you're, and it's like, I'm looking at who's behind the scenes wanting a certain resource, whether that's land, whether that's access to water in the region, whether that's access to oil in the region. And so when I hear influences, I think of those small voices in the room of corporate and power and their lobby that just so happens to be in line with a specific country in the region, personally. But yes, in this moment, I think the influences of the Israeli lobby right now have kind of clutched on to both Democrats and Republicans. And I think that will be the change that this election will bring, is that people on both sides, voters on both sides, are saying enough is enough.
Yeah. I mean, what was funny is when I first started this campaign, it was August of last year is when I first started. The amount of people that actually understood AIPAC or would even, because I would bring it up, because I mean, that was hot for me. Like last summer, that was another big reason for me to jump into this, is like, there's no one speaking up for what's going on in Palestine and to the residents of Gaza. Like no one's speaking up about it in the right way. Right. And it's like the only way you do that. So you got to get involved in Congress. Like we need to have these voices talking to normal people out and about. Like they didn't understand it, but now that's changing. Now I get questions almost every time. Are you going to accept APAC funds? Mm-hmm. Like that is becoming a constant like question that's out there, which is good to see. Mm-hmm. And I hope more and more people are understanding like what's going on and who's turning different things within our government. And it makes you question who's in control at the end of the day too.
And I think, you're my first congressional candidate that I can talk to about the Epstein files, but it's really crazy because there is another class of people who get to live by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
And it's all connected.
It really is. Like it makes you seem like the utmost conspiracy theorist, right? Mm-hmm. And that is at some point we've made that such a bad negative connotation to be a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, when there's document after document after document and there's wording of this and that, it's kind of hard to deny what we're reading.
It's not a conspiracy anymore.
No.
It's kind of proven.
It's proven. And it's like, it's interesting to see people on both sides of the aisle like navigate this in a way of like they don't want to admit. I'm like, bro, like what? Like you saw Ghislaine Maxwell go from a extremely lock and key federal prison to a bougie like spa, low security. With like a puppy program, and access to phone and internet. And that was under Trump's rule, and that was under his direction. And there's no conspiracy anymore. No.
So yeah, I'm grateful that you're talking about getting money out of politics and really trying to show up for people. We are potentially going through redistricting.
Yeah.
What do you think that's going to turn into for you?
It doesn't change anything for me. For me, my biggest thing that I've been doing is getting out into the community and talking to people. That's it. That's the cheapest way I could do this. That's the easiest way that I see how to do it. If that means I'm walking a bunch, that's fine. I've hiked everywhere. It's
your
like
calves are going to be this big.
That's fine. I already can't fit my jeans half the time. And it doesn't change. Does it change like the shape and the direction I travel? Yeah, it will. Could it change where I potentially live? Because I'm a firm believer of a representative needs to live within the district, and how that's not a state law for us is beyond me.
Right.
And if that means that our district shifts, because I've seen some maps, I'm like, all right, well, we'll find out how this goes. And it's just a matter of being able to pivot. And I think that's the great piece of where this campaign is at, is it's very easily able to pivot because it doesn't change the messaging. Like, this part of Florida, however they redistrict is this part of Florida, right? And we've had the same representation, whether it goes from District 6, District 7, 3, whatever, it's still the same. And we just need somebody that shows up and starts saying that. We need multiple people to start saying that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see who is speaking up and not speaking up about the redistricting. But I don't necessarily look at it as a negative thing one way or another. I just think it's another annoyance in everything that's going on. And it's another way for people to, because it really shows what they feel about representation.
Apparently Randy Fine and Daniel Webster are like freaking out, going up to Tallahassee saying like, do not redistrict me, which is interesting.
It's interesting. Well, he's just used that district as he thinks they don't understand who he is. And they didn't when they elected him. Mm-hmm. But now, I don't know. He's so disconnected from the district that he doesn't realize that they've been paying attention to him. So, I mean, I think he's having problems either way, whether it redistricts or not.
He's gone way too far off the batshit ledge.
I don't... Yeah. I think for his sake, maybe redistrict and send it back to like Brevard County where he lives at, but
right.
Who knows?
Well, as you're walking and hitting doors and go, 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 like what do you do to replenish yourself emotionally? Because I think running for office is really hard. You have to face a lot of themes that most people try to turn off the news and get away from. Yeah. What do you do to like kind of replenish yourself?
Well, I'm still, like I said, I have this small business with renovating trailers. So
Cool.
Yeah. I've been doing it like, I try to have one day a week that I go do that. Now I go on site and it's still within the district. So it's up towards St. Augustine area. So I'm still technically like going up and meeting people and campaigning, but I'm actually spending a few hours working with my hands and building. Right now I'm tearing stuff apart, but that helps me have that kind of little bit of a disconnect, but also get some work done. Mm-hmm. I'm a runner, so I have to run or walk every morning. Like that's my meditation time. I want
to get into it.
At least walk.
Help me. What do I do?
Just start walking.
Because what I do is I wake up and I immediately go into my doomsday scrolling and reading, and then 2 hours have gone by.
See, I got to get better at that because I do the same thing, but then I go for a walk and like just let it all kind of process out.
Nice.
Or run. But I have to have that. Like that ends up being like my movement meditation almost of just kind of letting it go. And it's also good to just to walk and like say good morning to people. Right. You know, it's just like real sense of community. And then my other thing, like last night I went to I saw Widespread Panic up in St. Augustine.
Cool.
Amazing show.
That's awesome. You like music, you like concerts.
Yes. So like this is concert festival season coming up with Florida. So there's a lot of great shows that I will be attending that is just a good break too. And it's like I sat there last night just watching the show, and the amphitheater in St. Augustine is an amazing venue. But
I saw the smile there.
You just like you see just community at its finest. Like no, there's no worry about anything, but like watching this band perform and hypnotize you for 2 hours.
Like, I just went to see Radiohead in Berlin.
Oh, wow.
And I cried like a baby.
It's crazy.
For hours.
It's a wild experience. Like a live music with a mass of people. Like you were just in this, I don't know.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So those have been my little getaways in this to like help. Like last night was amazing. I needed that like break because it's exhausting at times to have these, because you just have to have whatever in-depth conversation about politics that comes your way. And it's weird because once like I'll be on for a little while, like my brain will be working, and then it'll be a certain hour of the night I'll get asked a question, I'm like, shit, my brain turned off. Like,
yeah.
Hold on, I gotta find that again. But it's just part of it right now, and
that's how you're gonna make it work. You know, I mean, so for those who are watching that want to find out about you or volunteer or get involved, what can you plug to get them?
Totally. So yonceforcongress.com. So that's Yonce, YONCE, 4 spelled out, Congress. On there has ways to donate, which is desperately needed, even though we're talking about money in politics.
We want corporate money out, not your dollars out.
No corporate money. I will say my average donation is around $16.
Nice.
So it's great. Need volunteers. I need armies of people to go out. So we're trying to get representation for the campaign out across Central Florida. So we do have a volunteer form on that website as well. So you could easily fill that out and get us your information.
Well, I'm super excited to have you back on when you know what district you're running for.
Totally.
100%.
I know.
And thank you so much for making this time for us. And thank you to everybody who's watching. Please, please, please vote.
Yes. Get out there. Share that we have an election this year. It's one of the most crucial elections that we will have. You hear that every year, but this is truly it.
This is it. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great one, everybody. See you later. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard today, please comment, subscribe, and share. And visit organizingtovictory.com so that you can learn more about all the ways that we're going to be organizing this year. It is the most important election year of our lives. I know you hear that all the time, but we here at Organizing to Victory hope to not just talk about the issues, but to organize around the issues. So please share, subscribe, and follow us. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.